Hi, Genki Call here with your Soulforge offerings for the week of January 10th, 2022. We've got some good stuff in here. We've got something really great in here. I'm here to go over all of these things with you. So, to start with, let's go over the legendaries. We've got Chagra, which is a it's actually a really good troop. I can't speak, but it's a good troop. Create 6 red gems, then turn all red gems to skulls. She's actually very useful. I think that she is underrated by most people, including myself, because I haven't used her in forever. And she does do double damage, skull damage versus burning enemies. She's going to inflict burn. So as a lower level player, she was very, very useful for me. I really should use her more. Is she worth 800 diamonds? Probably not. But it's all a matter of opinion, isn't it? So Garnok is a legendary for Groshnak. He does 1 true damage to all allies. Yes, that does say allies. Then he creates 7 red and 7 brown gems, boosted by orc allies, yada yada, summon an orc troop. The main thing going for this troop is that he has a 50% mana start for orcs. However, the mythics for Groshnak are considered some of the worst in the game. Gargantor and Zorn something. Shade of Zorn, I think. I don't own either one of them, but the word is that they are terrible. So generally speaking, I wouldn't go out of your way to get this. Basically, people generally use orcs for events, and when the event comes around, you can try to get it with, will be in Groshnak, and you'll just use your event keys to get him. Borealis, however, is an excellent troop. She freezes all enemies, then does some damage to the weakest enemy. The thing is about Borealis is that when she freezes them, she does triple skull damage, and she has 65% skull damage reduction. So you throw her up at the front of your team with something that creates skulls. My favorite team is to use her with Zolgoth. And at the end of this video, there will be a clickable box to my Zolgoth spotlight, and the team will be in the description box, and you can see it in action in the video. Really fantastic, especially if you don't have Fireblade yet. It's a different take on Zolgoth. Zolgoth freezes all of the enemies and burns them, but instead of taking advantage of Fireblade or triple skull damage versus burning enemies, you're going the frozen route, but with 65% skull damage reduction. It's really, really a nice team, especially for leveling classes. Sylvana Nomura is okay. This entangle the first enemy on 4+ gem matches is a lot more relevant than it used to be because of the introduction of the troop Tannenbaum that does triple skull damage versus entangled enemies. And entangling a random troop doesn't really do you much good because it may entangle the 3rd or the 4th troop. And entangling the first enemy in it ensures that you're always going to be able to get that first troop entangled, so they can't hurt you with skulls, and you can, if you have Tannenbaum, do triple damage to them. But she does explode a column, so a little bit of mana generation there. Then she does damage to all enemies, really useful in delves. This number pops up a lot from your horde, so she is useful in that respect. I wouldn't say to craft any of these legendaries except possibly Borealis if you want to get that triple skull damage on freeze. If you want to level classes with the Zolgoth team and do level 12 explorers with the Zolgoth team, she's really good for that. Let's get the bad mythics out of the way first. I don't own either one of them. It is just the general consensus that they are bad. Wolfgarek, I've heard repeatedly, is not very good. He does a little bit of damage to an enemy boosted by War Gear allies, so at the most you're going to get an additional 12 damage on that. And if the enemy dies, devour a random enemy, which sounds great on paper. Um, but the fact that it does such a small amount of damage, you're pretty much got to have that troop almost dead already for it to work. Give 2 attack and magic to allied war gear when matching 4+ gems could be helpful. But like I said, this is one that generally is not thought of in a positive manner by the Gems of War community. Zelopochly, I can't pronounce that properly, does some damage to an enemy boosted by purple gems. So if there are 10 purple gems on the board, it will do an additional 10 damage because the 1-to-1 ratio. If there's a storm, he does double damage, which is nice. And if the enemy dies, create 12 skulls. So, you know, it doesn't look too bad to me, but I can't say anything from my own experience. However, you put him on a team with lots of yellow, maybe just throw him down there for his third trait. He's going to do 12 damage to a random enemy when matching yellow gems. So, you know, that can really add up if you have a very yellow-centric team. So that's all I can say about him. As for the last two, Megavore was my first mythic, and I used to run him with a Queen Beatrix team, so I got lots of match 4s. This 8% seems to hit a lot more often than 8%. And usually this favors the AI, but I've had him wipe out entire teams with that 8%. It was really useful in delves back in the day, but I hardly ever use him anymore. He eliminates all armor from all enemies and deals damage to the enemy on top of that. Then he submerges himself. So he's actually a very useful troop that I just don't use anymore. Basically, when you cast with him, he does have a 24 mana cost, but when you cast with him, he's basically going to make it so that your entire team is doing true damage. I mean, you can look at it that way because he's taking off all of the armor for all of the enemies. So he's a very good troop. I don't know that I would recommend crafting him unless you need a mythic from Blackhawk. There are better troops out there. And I also want to point out that we are going to Blackhawk next week. So you will have a chance to pull him with your event keys next week if you want to try for that. All right, last one in here is VashDagon. He's an interesting troop. He devours an ally, which doesn't sound great to me. I was really confused by that when I first got him. But then he summons a demon if the ally is devoured. Then he does true scatter damage boosted by his life with a 3-to-1 ratio. So if I had 100 life, he would do an extra 33 scatter damage. But the main thing about VashDagon that's very good is curse a random enemy when matching brown. So he is super useful to run on High King Iron Gut teams in delves because he's going to curse them, and if they are immune to devour, they won't be immune anymore. If they're cursed, you can devour them. And so that is the main thing VashDagon has got going for him. However, there are multiple troops, including legendaries, that would have this passive ability to curse enemies, like Matron Valen for one, and she's going to curse and web. So, you know, I wouldn't recommend crafting him unless you need him for Karakoth, for your power level there. But we've got something really excellent in here that I absolutely recommend crafting, and that is Norberts Turnip. This is an incredibly powerful weapon, and it runs with brown and yellow, and it creates a mix of green and red. So it doesn't feed into itself. What makes it powerful is that it gets an extra turn. The final update on the Norberts Turnip gives you an extra turn. And that means if you didn't make a match 4, you're going to be able to have a chance to make one. And so deals damage to an enemy boosted by goblin allies. You run this with a full goblin team, and it is crazy good. Um, just super powerful. Absolutely recommend getting this week before it leaves the Soulforge. As for other weapons, the Dagger of Zajin is one of those very cheap, um, one of those 75 diamond cheap weapons that does double damage to um, the troop type that we have during the week, which is Goblin, and from Zajin, I should say. Not all goblins, just Zajin troops. Um, and it runs with brown mana, so you can't actually use it for this week's event. That has to be our blue or green color. If you could use it this week, I might say that this was worth getting because you can do double damage to High King Iron Gut with this dagger. So anyway, it removes all green gems, which will boost this damage that you're going to do to an enemy. You do not get any mana out of it. So there's that. Then we've got the Facestick, which I actually really like. It's fun to use because it blows things up. It does splash damage, which means you can do damage to at most 3 enemies. But I think it's fun. It's just you've got the explosions. It's funny looking. It's called a Facestick. I like it a lot. Not necessarily something you have to have, but I do enjoy it and I use it quite often. Lastly, we've got the Fleshripper here. To me, it just seems like a weaker version of Trickster's Shot, or except it doesn't keep getting more powerful. So you've got your Meng and your Earth Fury and your Trickster's Shot. All of them get more powerful every time you cast them. Fleshripper, though, he's only going to be, I mean, it will get more powerful every time you remove armor. But once all of the armor is gone, the boost is gone. And also, it has a limited amount of extra damage it can do. It might be useful. It might be. I'm just not seeing it. I mean, I know I've seen somebody use this in the past and it seemed quite effective, but because of the other options, I'm going to say no at this point as far as crafting it. I might change my mind later in the week, but look at this. This is the first thing that popped up today. Fleshripper for $4.99. Nope. If I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it with my diamonds. But anyway, that's what we have in the Soulforge this week. Absolutely recommend Norberts Turnip, maybe Megavore or VashDagon. And basically that is it for this week. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.